Welcome to Mobile Device Manager Plus training. My name is Induja. I am a product specialist with MDM and I'll be your trainer for the day. This training program is scheduled for 3 weeks and we are on week 1 now. And today we will be discussing about device onboarding and provisioning. In the following weeks, we have a lineup of topics such as app management and modern management. Our agenda for the day is as follows. First of all, we will have an overview of Mobile Device Manager Plus. In this section, we'll give you a general introduction about the product, and we will also discuss the architecture and prerequisites for the workflow of MDM. This section will be helpful for those who are not familiar with the product already. Secondly, we'll look into the procedures for enrollment of mobile devices into MDM. So these devices are the ones, it could be the ones that are already in use or new devices as well. The next section will be deploying of configurations to the enrolled devices, which will make them enterprise usage ready. Following which, we will discuss the procedure to prevent unauthorized access to your corporate mail accounts. And finally, we will be discussing the scenarios and solutions. Moving on to the first topic. MDM supports management of smartphones and tablets across major operating systems such as Apple, Android, and Windows. In addition to that, we also support Mac OS and Apple TV under Apple, Android TV under Android, and Windows 10 laptops and Surface Pro devices under Windows, as well as Chrome OS devices. MDM is available as an add-on with our unified endpoint management solution, that is Desktop Central. And if you're looking for managing only mobile devices, then you can choose the standalone MDM solution. If you want to manage the devices of different clients under a single dashboard, we also have an MSP edition of MDM available. So all these 3 products are available in both on-premises and cloud versions. When it comes to integration, MDM could be integrated with the help desk applications such as Spiceworks, Jira, Zendesk Support, and ServiceNow, and our in-house help desk application, that is ManageEngine Service Desk Plus. In addition to the help desk applications, it could also be integrated with Zoho CRM and Zoho Creator, which is our low-code application development platform as well. If you want to integrate it with any other third-party solutions, we do have publicly available API, which you can access using the link that is given below. Let us take a look at the architecture of MDM now. It comprises majorly 3 components. One is MDM server and the notification services that are provided by the OEM vendors and the devices to be managed. MDM server leverages the notification services to wake the device, and the device in turn reaches the MDM server to receive the commands to be executed on it. Now, the notification services play an important role in the communication. So for iOS, the notification service is Apple Push Notification Service, which is APNS. For Android, it is Firebase Cloud Messaging, that is FCM. And for Windows, it is Windows Notification Services, WNS. So for the devices to reach the MDM server from outside the network, you need to make sure that MDM server is accessible over the internet with the help of NAT configuration. But in some cases, that raises some security concerns. In such scenarios, you can make use of our optional component called Secure Gateway, which facilitates the communication between device to server without having to expose the server to internet. Optionally, you can also integrate your Active Directory with MDM, which facilitates easier user authentication or user assignment to the devices. Following are the list of ports that are being used by MDM. To take a look at the complete list of ports, you can refer the link that is given below. So how exactly does MDM manage the devices? So for Android devices, MDM mobile application will get installed on the device, and that acts as the management tool. Whereas for the other operating systems like Apple, Windows, and Chrome OS devices, they already have a device management capability available. So MDM just leverages that option and manage them. We will move on to the topic for the day, which is enrollment. But before that, let me take you to MDM Web Console, and I will give you a walkthrough of all the available options here. So on the MDM Web Console, the home page will give you sort of an overview of all the devices that are being managed under MDM. You will find the devices and applications that are being managed in MDM. And device management is where you have the actual management capabilities available, meaning this is where you will be deploying policies or applications to the devices. Along with it, you also have remote control options, deployment of certificates, etc. And with inventory, you will be able to find the granular details about the devices, like what are all the applications that are installed on them, and you can also find the location details of it. So that is inventory tab. And enrollment is where you will be onboarding the device into MDM. We will be discussing this topic in detail in another few minutes. And reports is where you have the predefined reports available, which will fetch you all the details regarding the devices that are being managed by MDM. You can generate these reports on demand or schedule it according to your requirements also. And with admin tab, you have the server related configuration options available. So as I mentioned, you need to configure NAT settings first to ensure that the devices are properly accessing MDM server from outside the network. So this one is like a prerequisite. And you also have an option to find whatever action that has happened on the MDM Web Console, which is called Action Log Viewer. So this basically is a recording of whatever events that has happened on the MDM Web Console. And with support tab, you will be able to find the help documents and the ways to reach us, like the toll-free number and the chat box. So speaking of chat, we have our panelists available here. So during the course of this session, if you get any questions, you can raise it to them and they will help you accordingly. Now let us move on to the enrollment part. For this presentation, we'll consider the organization name to be Zylker. And let us consider the devices of this organization are a mix of the existing devices and new devices. By existing devices, I mean the devices that are already in use by the employees. So for these kind of devices, that is the devices that are already in use, we do have two enrollment options available. One is enrollment with invites and the other one is self-enrollment. So when exactly do you use this enrollment method? What exactly are the scenarios where you can use it? So the first scenario is when the devices are not owned by the company, when the devices are owned by the employees themselves, but the company wants to manage certain business data on the device. In other words, BYOD devices. In such case, you can use these enrollment methods. The second scenario is when the devices are owned by the company, but they are distributed to the end users for their personal usage. Like those devices are provisioned with minimal restrictions or no restrictions at all. So that is another scenario where you can use these enrollment methods. And the third and important scenario is when you want to migrate your devices from another third-party MDM solution to ManageEngine MDM. So normally, when you do this, a factory resetting of a device will be required, but we do facilitate migration without factory resetting using these two enrollment methods. So from the scenarios, we do understand that the personal data and the business data are going to be on the same devices in such scenarios, right? So in such situations, we do have the possibilities of data breaching. So the first possibility is the data can be shared between different devices using the connectivity options like AirDrop or Android Beam or Bluetooth. or the data sharing can happen on the same device between the corporate applications and the personal applications. That is also possible. And the other possibility is uploading of business data from the device to any other third-party cloud storage solution. So to tackle all these, we do have these enrollment methods. So what exactly are the benefits of these are? The first and foremost benefit is you will be able to isolate personal and corporate data, even though they are on the same device. So for iOS devices, you will have to make use of certain restriction policies that we have in MDM to separate these. But for Android devices, it will be separated by default. Like containerization will get enabled automatically, and you will be able to see the separation visibly on the screen. The corporate applications will be provisioned with the briefcase icon, and the personal applications will be available as usual. And the data sharing between these two, that is the work profile and the personal profile, will be restricted by default on such devices. And you can also prevent access of any other third-party solution into your devices. That is, you can prevent the unauthorized access. Also, you can prevent the uploading of data to any other third-party solution. So the data sharing of corporate information will get restricted. So we'll first take a look at the enrollment option through invites, and then we'll move on to discussing the self-enrollment part. For enrollment with invites, this is the basic workflow. So the admin will send an enrollment invite to the user. The user will accept the invitation by either scanning the QR code in the email or accessing the enrollment URL. So once that is done, the device will get registered into MDM. Normally for Android devices, you can go with the enrollment procedure as usual. There isn't any other prerequisite. But for iOS devices, there is a prerequisite available, meaning you will have to configure something called Apple Push Notifications certificate. So before you enroll any iOS device, be it personal or corporate, you will have to configure APNS certificate. Only then you can proceed with the enrollment. The reason for this is APNS certificate is the one that facilitates communication through the Apple Push Notification service, the notification service that we discussed in the architecture part. So if you have not configured this one, there will not be any communication in the first place. So you will not be able to enroll the device. So it is very important to configure this beforehand. And to do that, you need to move to Mobile Device Manager plus Console. And under enrollment, you will have APNS certificate option under Apple. You need to click on that and download the vendor signed CSR certificate. So this is a certificate that is given by MDM. You need to download this, and then you can click on sign in option and log into the Apple Push Notifications portal. So this is that portal. After logging in, you can click on create certificate and accept the conditions. Upload the certificate that is given by MDM. So after uploading it here, as an acknowledgement, APNS server will give you another certificate that needs to be downloaded and uploaded back on the MDM console. So if you see here, this is basically an exchange of certificates. So once that is done, APNS certificate is generated and it will be added on the MDM console. You can proceed with the enrollment of iOS devices thereon. So the important point to note here is this certificate is a cost-free certificate, but it will be valid only for 1 year. So you need to renew it every year with the same Apple ID that you are using during creation. This is a very important thing. All right. Now let me take you to the enrollment console. So under enrollment devices, you can just choose the platform. So when you choose the platform to be either iOS or Android, you will be posted with two options, by myself and through user invites. So now we are going to discuss the through user invites option, but by myself option can be used for the second scenario that we discussed, meaning the devices are owned by the company, but are deployed to the users for their personal usage. So even though the devices are deployed to the employees, the device is still owned by the company, right? So you will have to make sure that it is provisioned under the company name itself. So that is why we do have an option called by myself, where the admin email ID will be used to provision the device. So now coming to our topic, when you choose through user invite, you will be asked to enter the username and email ID to which the enrollment invite should be sent. So you can click on add user and provide a new email and username and send the invite to that particular user. Here we have already added many users here, so we can just add that. And then if you want to assign the device to any specific group on MDM, you can choose it. But for now, we are not going to assign it to any other groups. You can click on send enrollment invite, which will send the enrollment instruction to the end user. And the instructions will be something like this. So a QR code along with an enrollment URL and OTP will be available. All right. So the end user just has to follow these instructions and the device will get enrolled into MDM. Now let me take you to the device and let me show you how it will look like. So when the user scans the QR code or access the enrollment URL, the MDM profile will get installed. And after it is installed, downloaded, the end user need to open the device and move to the settings app and install the downloaded profile manually and trust the MDM certificate, which will complete the enrollment procedure. So once that is done, the device will get enrolled into MDM. So as you have seen here, the enrollment invite will be specific to every user, meaning the QR code and the OTP will be specific to every individual user and the platform of the devices. And the OTP will also get expired within 7 days. What if you are not sure of the platform of the device that the end users are using? And what if you are not sure whether they would access their email within 7 days and use the OTP? So in such scenarios, you can go with the alternate method, which is self-enrollment. So the basic workflow of self-enrollment is there will be a common enrollment URL available. On accessing it, the end users will be posted with the enrollment instructions. So they just have to follow it. And to authenticate themselves, they have to make use of their Active Directory credentials. So once the authentication is done, the device will get registered with MDM. So let me take you to the MDM console and I'll show you that. Under enrollment, self-enrollment, there will be this common URL available. So this needs to be published by the MDM admin to the employees of that particular company. So when you access this, enrollment instructions will be shown on the device. So this is how it will look like. The device that I'm using right now is a Windows 10 device. So it shows the enrollment procedure for Windows 10 machine. For smartphones, if it is an Android device, accessing this URL will automatically download the MDM app and it will show you the rest of the enrollment procedures. If it's an iOS device, it will automatically download the profile and it will redirect you to install it and proceed with the rest of the enrollment instructions. So here you do have the option to allow all the AD groups to enroll their devices by themselves, or you can choose any specific AD groups alone. So by AD groups, I refer to the users that are grouped under your Active Directory. So you can configure that and you can also allow the number of devices each user should be able to enroll into MDM. And whenever a device is enrolled into MDM, you can also get a notification using an email ID. So you can just configure this. And since this requires Active Directory credentials as an authentication method, you need to make sure that your Active Directory is first integrated. So under Directory Services, you have the option to integrate the type of AD that you use. As you see here, we do support on-premises AD, Azure AD, and Okta as well. So you can just use the one that you use in your organization So this will fetch the domain users automatically to the MDM, with which the credentials can be used for authentication and the device will get enrolled. So with self-enrollment, this is how it will look like on a smartphone. When the enrollment instructions are shown, the MDM app will get installed and the user can provide the server details, which will be there in the instructions itself. The user just has to enter the details. And then when you click on continue, Active Directory authentication will be prompted. The user has to provide it. And once the authentication is successful, you can proceed with the enrollment procedure. And upon clicking on finish, you will see the work profile and personal profile separated visibly. So these are all the enrollment methods that we have for the devices that are already in use. When it comes to new devices though, you will have to complete the initial setup process manually, which makes it clear that is there is an intervention by the end user or the admin is required. So to tackle this, we do have an option to automate the enrollment procedures via MDM. So MDM automates the enrollment with the help of Apple Business Manager for Apple devices and via Zero Touch Enrollment and Knox Mobile Enrollment for Android devices. So the major benefits of automated automatically synchronized under MDM as well. So when the devices are distributed and they are reset or activated by the end user or by the admin, the device will get automatically enrolled into MDM. Since the integration has already happened in the backend, it will not require any other procedure. As soon as it is activated, it will get enrolled. So we'll first look into the Apple Business Manager enrollment and then we'll move on to the other enrollment procedures. With Apple Business Manager, you need to move to enrollment ABM. So normally you will have the option to integrate ABM as well as ASM based on the kind of organization that you are. ABM is Apple Business Manager, ASM is Apple School Manager. So whatever account that you have in your organization can be integrated with MDM. So here you will have to download the public key that is available in MDM, and then you need to log into the ABM portal. So on the ABM portal, you can move to settings, device management settings, and click on add MDM server. This is where you will be integrating your MDM server with ABM. So here you can just provide a name and then upload the certificate that is downloaded from MDM. In the first step, we have downloaded a certificate, right? That needs to be uploaded here, and upon saving it, there will be an acknowledgement token that will be available on the ABM portal. So this procedure is similar to the APNS procedure only. So this acknowledgement token needs to be downloaded and then uploaded back to the MDM console. So this also is an exchange of tokens or exchange of certificates. So once it is uploaded, you will be taken to device activation settings, where you can configure the steps to be skipped during the device activation. Meaning, when you activate a device for the first time, there will be a wizard of options that you have to go through. So if you want to skip those, you can do it here. So you have the option to skip signing in with the Apple ID or the terms and conditions or privacy options. So all these can be set here and skipped during the process manually. So once it is integrated, your ABM server will get added here. And the next step is to add the devices on the portal. For that, you need to move to the ABM portal again, move to settings, device management settings, and provide the Apple customer number if the devices are purchased directly from Apple, or provide the reseller ID if it is purchased from an authorized reseller. So once you provide these details and save the settings, whatever devices that are tagged under this particular customer number or reseller ID will get synchronized under ABM account automatically. So all these device details will be there on ABM, and then these needs to be assigned with the MDM server. So you can just click on assign and choose the MDM server that you want the device to get assigned to. Now our MDM server's name is Xylker, right? So we can just choose it and proceed with the user assignment. So what happens on the device back here is, when you activate the device, the configuration that you have added under the device activation settings will get deployed to the device automatically, since ABM and MDM are integrated, and then the device will get enrolled into MDM automatically. All right, without any manual procedure, the device will get managed by MDM. Now we'll move on to the zero touch enrollment part, which is for Android devices. The procedure is more similar to the ABM, but here the portal is zero touch portal. For accessing zero touch portal, there is yet again a prerequisite that is available. That is, you cannot create an account with zero touch portal by yourself. Meaning, with ABM, you can directly go to business.apple.com and provide your organization details and create an account for yourself. And then you can integrate it with MDM and follow the rest of the procedure. But with zero touch enrollment, that is not possible. You will have to request your access with the reseller, and reseller has to create an account for you and approve it. Only then you will be able to access the zero touch portal. So once you have got the portal access, you can create a configuration here, provide your organization details, and under DPC Extra, you need to provide the JSON file that is available under zero touch enrollment. So under enrollment, you will find the JSON file. This needs to be added here under configuration. So once that is added and applied, the configuration will get created, and to the corresponding devices, you can assign it. So after setting the configuration, this is how it will look like on the device. When it is activated, MDM app will get installed automatically, as I mentioned, and then it will get the configurations that are added on the zero touch portal to the devices by itself. And you can click on finish, and the enrollment is succeeded. So now we have seen the enrollment procedures for the devices that are already in use using invite and self-enrollment. And for new devices, we have seen ABM enrollment method and zero touch enrollment method. We do have other options like Apple we have covered the major enrollment methods that are available. Now we'll move on to the next section, which is provisioning of mobile devices. So by provisioning, we mean the deployment of configurations and policies to the devices to make sure that the devices are enterprise usage ready. So to do that, you need to move to enrollment, device management, profiles. So profiles are the payloads or the policies that you're going to deploy onto the devices. So you can click on create profile, choose the platform, and then the first policy is passcode policy. So on an Android, on a corporate device, you would not want the data to be present on the device without any security, right? So in such situations, you can configure the passcode policy wherein you can configure the criteria with which the end user needs to set a passcode. Meaning you can just configure how long the passcode should be or how many special characters should be there. So you can configure all those criteria. And once this profile is saved, published, and deployed to the device, MDM will prompt the end user to set a passcode that is compliant with this criteria. Only then he will be able to access the device further. So on the device, this is how it will look like. So once the passcode profile is applied, a prompt will be posted from MDM. So for the first 60 minutes, the user will be able to skip the configuration of passcode, but after 60 minutes, the user will be forced. So only after the passcode is set, he'll be able to access the device further. So that is passcode policy. And we do have a list of restrictions that can be deployed on the devices. So for the scenario where we have seen that there are devices with minimal to no restrictions will be deployed to the employees, correct? So on such devices, the possibilities of data breaching is high. So to prevent that, under security, you have an restriction policy called share data from managed apps, unmanaged apps, and vice versa. So if you restrict these two options, there will not be any data sharing between the corporate apps and the personal apps. So managed apps are the applications that are deployed from MDM. Unmanaged apps are the pre-installed applications or user-installed applications. So when these policies are restricted, users will not be able to share any data between managed and unmanaged apps. So I will show you the difference on the device. So consider there is a business email from which a PDF is downloaded. So if you have not configured any security policy, when you try to open it, all the available options will be shown here. Among these, only Office and MDM are the corporate applications. These two are personal applications, but still they are shown. So the user can very well choose the personal application and go ahead with accessing the document and share it with whatever other applications that he wants. So now, after you configure this policy, if this profile is applied to the device, this is how it will look like. When the business data is tried to be opened, only the business applications will be shown. And the personal applications will not be shown. So this is just to make sure that the business data stays within the container only. On Android devices, though, the separation is visible. So there is a personal application section and there is a corporate application section, and the data sharing is restricted by default. So in such cases, these policies are not required. This is only for iOS devices. And in addition to these restrictions, you also have the option to deploy configurations to the devices, meaning Wi-Fi, VPN, email, Exchange. All these configurations can be deployed to the devices directly from MDM. So whenever the user accesses the device, he need not configure it manually and then connect to it. For example, if you want to deploy the Wi-Fi configuration, you just have to enter the SSID and configure the passcode and deploy it to the devices. So when this is done, this particular network will be available by default on the device. The user just has to connect to it. And you can also choose connect automatically option, which will get the device connected to the network automatically if it is in range. So this policy will be helpful if you do not want to expose the password of your corporate network, but you want all the devices to be using that particular network. So you can make use of this option. Same goes for VPN also. We do support all these VPN connections. So you can choose the one that you use and deploy the configuration. Normally, when you deploy VPN configuration, it will be applied to the device as a whole. But if you want to restrict the VPN access only to your business applications and not to the whole device, that is also possible with per app VPN. So you can just choose the required applications and only the traffic from that application will be going through your corporate network. The other applications will not use the VPN connection that you have deployed. And coming to the email configuration, if you are using any other mail server, you can just configure the server details here and deploy to the devices. But if you are using Exchange mail server, you can configure Exchange active sync policy with which you can deploy the configuration to the device. So here, as you see, we do support both online and on-premises edition of Exchange. So you can choose the one that you use in your organization, enter the server details and deploy it to the devices. So the Exchange Active Sync configuration that is deployed from MDM will be added to native email client in case of iOS and Gmail app in case of Android. In case of any other third-party application usage, we do have a provision for it. So you have to deploy the application from MDM and make certain configuration changes. So application deployment part will be discussed in detail in the next week's session. For now, you can just know that you have the option to deploy Exchange configuration here. And then we do have option to configure a managed web domain, meaning if you have any particular web page from which the data should be accessed only by the corporate application, you can just declare it here. So what happens is whatever data or document that is downloaded from that particular web page will be accessed only by your managed applications. The unmanaged applications will not be an option to access the data, similar to the containerization part. So these are all the policies. So once you save the required policies and publish it, all the published policies will be here. You can move to groups and devices, choose the group and associate profile, or if you want to deploy it to individual devices, that is also possible. You can choose the device and choose associate profile. Now we'll move on to the next section, which is prevention of unauthorized access to your corporate Exchange accounts. This can be achieved with the help of conditional Exchange access. So the workflow of conditional Exchange access is you will be integrating your Exchange server, be it online or on premises, with your MDM server, and then you will be configuring the conditional Exchange access policy on MDM console. So once this is done, MDM will allow only the enrolled devices to access your Exchange server and block the unenrolled devices. So to set this up, you need to move to device management, conditional Exchange access, choose the kind of Exchange server that you use, provide the admin credentials. So this will integrate your Exchange and MDM server. So here MDM will start synchronizing the mailboxes from your Exchange server. And then you can move on to access policy and start configuring the restriction policy here. So you can prevent all the users from accessing your mail server if the devices are not enrolled, or if you have the option to exclude certain users, that is also possible. So when you click here, you can exclude certain people, maybe like the top management people, from this restriction policy. So they will still be able to access your corporate network even though the devices are not enrolled. And you also have an option to block the Exchange access immediately, or give them certain grace period. As you see here, we do have the option configured for 3 days as grace period. So for what happens is, for these 3 days, the end users without an enrolled device will receive an email stating that the mail access will be blocked if the devices are not enrolled into MDM, along with the enrollment procedure. So they have to get their devices enrolled before the grace period ends. So the mail access will be continued. So after you configure this setting, MDM will allow only the enrolled devices into MDM, and the unenrolled devices will get blocked. All right, so this basically is MDM will act as a firewall between the Exchange server and the devices that are trying to access it. So the basic workflow behind this is, whenever you enroll a device into MDM and configure an Exchange Active Sync profile from the MDM console to the device, there is an identifier called Exchange Active Sync Identifier, EAS identifier, will be generated from the native mail client. So this identifier will be stored in MDM. So when a device tries to access the Exchange server, MDM checks whether this identifier is the same as it is saved in the MDM console. If it is same, it will allow it. If not, it will block it. This is the backend workflow. So we have come to the final section of the session, which is discussion of use cases and the corresponding solutions. So the first use case is, are we able to enroll the devices into Apple Business Manager if they are not purchased from an authorized reseller? Normally, Apple will not allow such device addition into Apple Business Manager, but MDM facilitates this through Apple Configurator option. So with Apple Configurator, you can go with the blueprint and you can choose the Add to Device Enrollment Program option, which will add the device to Apple Business Manager, even though they are not purchased from an authorized reseller. There are certain scenarios where the account addition itself will not be possible, meaning on the ABM portal, the organization will not be able to create an account in the first place. In such scenarios, you can just uncheck this option and proceed with the normal Apple Configurator enrollment itself. There will not be any difference in terms of management between Apple Business Manager and Apple Configurator enrollment. Both the options under MDM will provide you same set of privileges. You will have admin privileges on these two devices. And the next scenario is, what if you want to leverage the benefits of zero-touch enrollment, but the devices are not supported? So in such cases, we do have an alternate method called EMM token enrollment that is available here under enrollment. This is where you have the Apple Configurator enrollment, the one that we have just saw now. So you can just follow the Apple Configurator steps here and enroll the devices. Now coming to the alternate method for zero-touch enrollment, that is EMM token. That will be available under Android. So here, what you need to do is just reset the device and enter the DPC token as it is given here, which will download the MDM app automatically, post which you need to scan this QR code to complete the enrollment. This is it. This is EMM token enrollment. This is the best alternate method that you can use because this is applicable for all the Android devices with OS version 6.0 and above, irrespective of the manufacturers. So it is always better to go with this enrollment method if you have the devices from different manufacturers. So this is how it will look like on the device. After you activate it, you just have to enter the DPC token when it prompts for the Google account, which will download the MDM app, post which you can use the scan QR option, the first option here, and scan the QR code that is provided on the console. And the next scenario is, what happens when two contradictory profiles are applied to a device? Okay, now let us consider two different profiles here. Under device management profiles, let us consider these two profiles. So in this profile, consider I have restricted the camera option, and I'm creating another profile where I have allowed the camera option. So both these profiles are now deployed to the same device. In such case, what happens is iOS will check which one is the most secured profile among these two. Normally, there will be a workflow difference between iOS and Android when it comes to profile policies. So when two contradictory profiles get assigned to the same device, iOS checks the security aspect of it. So according to Apple, if a policy is restricted, it is the most secured one. So when you have applied a profile with camera allowed on one and restricted on one, the profile with the camera restriction will be applied on the device. All right. So the profile where camera option is restricted is the one that will get applied on the device, not the other one. This is the workflow for iOS. Whereas in Android, it will not check the security aspect of it. It will just take it in the order of assignment. Meaning, if I apply the profile with camera restricted on it first, and then after the successful application of that profile, if I apply another profile where camera is allowed, then the camera will get allowed on the device. Basically, the latter profile will override the former one. That is the workflow in Android. And the next scenario is how to ensure that the users are connecting only to the MDM distributed Wi-Fi networks. So this can be done under restrictions. Here, you will have connect to Wi-Fi only if distributed via MDM. So if you set this option to yes, only the configuration that you have deployed from MDM will get added to the device. That is, the device can connect only to such networks, and the device will not be able to connect to any other Wi-Fi network in the company or any other network in general. So when you choose this option, you will be given an alert stating that a Wi-Fi configuration needs to be deployed beforehand. The reason is basically when this restriction gets applied, MDM will just disable the Wi-Fi connectivity option for the end user. So the end user cannot manually connect to any available Wi-Fi networks. The option will just get locked down. And if the Wi-Fi network is completely lost and if the device is not with an internet connection now, even if you configure a Wi-Fi and deploy it via MDM, it will not reach the device because the device is now without an internet connection. It is just breakdown. So in such case, it will not get connected to any other network, and the MDM configured Wi-Fi will also be not able to reach the device. So the device will get breakdown. The only option would be to reset it and re-enroll the device, which is very tedious and it is not ideal in an enterprise environment. So it is always recommended to have a Wi-Fi configuration deployed first. After the Wi-Fi is deployed from MDM and if the device is properly connecting to it, then you can configure this restriction. So only the outside network will get blocked. There will be the existing configuration from MDM available. And the next scenario is how to prevent the notification of sensitive data on the screen. So on Android devices, this is a possibility of security breach where the users will be able to find the sensitive data without even unlocking the device. So to prevent this, we can configure a profile. So let me open an Android profile here. Under restrictions, you will have lock screen notification preference under security. So here, if you see the normal default option is show all notification content. So if you want to prevent this, you can choose hide sensitive content. which will just disable the showing of message on the device lock screen. So without knowing the passcode, the user will not be able to find the data. And then what if you want to deploy the profiles to different groups with some minimal modifications on them? So that can be done using the profile cloning option that we provide. So here, as you see, all the published profiles are listed here. And when you click on actions, you will have an option called copy profile. So when you click on copy profile, all the policies available in this particular profile will get added, and along with it, you will be able to make certain modifications. So when you click on copy profile, a new profile will get created with the name copy, and then you can continue. And with the existing options, you can configure any other required restrictions and deploy it to the required devices. Now we have come to the end of this session. So if you have found this session useful, please rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is the best. And we would also love for you to spread the word about the MDM free training that is available on the social media platforms. And the next training is going to be on the topic app management and device security. So it will be in next week at the same time. Thank you again for your valuable time.